Who's that?
That's Horace Hamilton Hall. That's my grandfather and grandmother. That's my grandmother. She was a lovely lady. That was my grandpa. Uh, he took and raised me up till I was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. And I followed him around like a puppy dog. And I used to follow him out in the woods. He had a skill or a saw and an axe, and he would chop down hickory trees and make railroad ties out of them. And he had a broad axe he hewed the ties with. And he would put those two ties on his shoulder and carry them in. And I was dragging the broad axe. That's my dad. I don't know how old he was or where it was taken. He was a mean old man. That's my grandfather and my grandmother and that B.I.H. grandmother. I loved that woman dearly. When I was so little, I would lay on her lap, and she had pretty good sized boobs, and I was always in between them. It's my grandfather and my cousins, and I don't know who the lady in the top is. That's my grandmother, and that's my dad, Harry Hall. That's Georgianne. She's a cousin. She lives in Ohio yet, and she's I don't know, Knoxville. I think she lives in, or not. I don't remember. He was a tough old man. That's my Uncle Joe and my grandfather.
Uncle Joe was your dad's brother.
Yeah. That's my dad, and that's my grandfather beside him.
That picture was probably taken, your dad looks about, what, 25?
Probably he was.
That would make that early 1930s or so.
Well, he was born in 1910, and it's probably in the early 30s, probably before I was born. No, that's my dad and my Uncle Willard. He fought in World War II. He spent his time in the Philippines. That's Willard and my dad and Georgianne off to the side. Now there's my grandfather, Willard, Joe, and Cecil. That was Amelia's husband. And that girl beside him is Pat.
Who's Pat?
Pat is the stepdaughter of Cecil's. Amelia was married twice. Now that's my mother, but I never knew her. She wanted to throw me out of the window of a second-story house when I was pretty small, so I don't know who she is. She wound up in an institution. That's my dad standing beside his 41 Plymouth he bought, brand spanking new at $845. That was a National House trailer he bought, and we lived in that for quite a while. And he pulled that from Michigan to Seattle, Washington. And when we got up there, at the end of the war in 45, we moved to Arizona.
And he used the Plymouth to pull it?
And what?
The Plymouth.
Oh, yeah, the 41 Plymouth pulled that. I remember one time we pulled it over Butte Pass, Montana, and he stalled because it just wouldn't pull anymore. And a 28 Hupmobile come by, hooked onto him, pulled car, house trailer, and all right over the hill. That's my dad, and that's that thing he was married to. That was my dad, and that was one of his floozies he was dating or married. That's my Aunt Amelia, who raised me up until I was 3 years old, I think. That's his 41 Plymouth. That's my dad, and I don't know if that's my real mother or one of his floozies. My dad was a good-looking man. Everybody thought he was Tyrone or Clark Gable. It's my dad in the center, and I don't know the other two guys. That's my Uncle Willard, who was in the Philippines. That's my dad, and that was a guy he worked with. His name was Smitty, and that was his wife. That's my dad, and I don't know if that's Amelia or Cecil or who that is. It's my dad looking at something.
That's Thomas Harry.
Yes, Thomas Harry Hall. Now it's my dad sitting on a 350 Honda motorcycle. It's my dad as he got older.
That's in Phoenix.
Yes. That's my grandmother looking out the window. She was awful sick at that particular time. That's a B-24 flying over our house when I was a kid. That's me when I was 25. That's me again. I don't know how old I was. That's my sister, Ruth, and that's me in the top hat. My sister was quite a good-looking girl. She died when she was in her early 50s. Now, that's my cousin Pat and me. That's me in the wash tub. It's Thomas Ray Hall.
And that's the number 2 wash tub, right?
Yeah, number 2 wash tub. I grew up in it. That's Pat and me again. That's Donna Jean Van Hoos, and that's me, and that's my dad in the background. There's my dad and that guy called Smitty. He was in Michigan. Now that is my beloved Joyce, and I don't know who that is. I think it's probably her first boyfriend. That's me and my sister in Wayne, Michigan. They had bought some ground and had acreage on it. That's my dad drinking a bottle of beer, and my sister and me. My dad was an alcoholic. That's Peggy. Was number 1 Peggy when I got that little dog when I was about, Jesus, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I don't know. That's my sister, and that's Flip. He was a big German Shepherd. That's my dad with his 38-40 pistol, want to shoot my dog. That was our neighbor, Lenny. That was her dog. That's Donna Jean Van Hoos again, and Peggy. Peggy's the dog.
Who's Donna Jean?
Donna Jean was a friend of the family. She was, Rosalie was her mother, and Donna Jean was her child. And she was a sweet little girl. That's Peggy again, the dog. That's me in the middle, my dad.
How old do you think you were?
Pardon me?
How old?
I was in the service at that particular time.
So you might have been 20?
Yeah, probably 18, 20, somewhere around there. That pretty little girl was named, God, what was her name? I saw her brother in Phoenix, and we had a love-hate relationship going. If I didn't have a date at night, I'd call her, and she didn't have one, so we went to the movies.
That isn't Eddie's sister.
Yeah, that was Eddie's sister. I'll think of her name later. It's Donna Jean again with Peggy and her puppies. That's me in Phoenix holding my dog. That's a soapbox derby my dad helped me build. And the Ziggy Zardes was the sponsor. We raced down that's me and my dad.
Race down what?
That's in Phoenix.
What did you race down?
Little homemade hill.
Oh.
Yeah. That's the soapbox derby helmet they give you to have to wear. That's the picture of the soapbox. Now that's me with the sucker in my mouth, Donna Jean, Bobby Hill, and that was a neighbor girl.
Who's Bobby Hill?
Bobby Hill lived down the street. He was my best buddy. We played guns a lot, and that was like cowboys and Indians. Now that's my sister, and the girl, one of the girls' name was Catherine, and I don't know who all the rest of them are exactly. I probably would if I knew them. It's probably my cousins.
You think that's you in the middle there?
That's what?
You?
Yes, that's me in the center. The kid next to me is Junior. That was, he committed suicide for some reason.
How old was he?
Huh?
When he committed suicide,
He
how old?
was in his teens or early 20s. That's me, my dad, my sister, and then Donna Jean again. Now that's I think that's my sister in the back, and that's me. And that asshole and the son up front there was named Keith. That was my B.I.H.'s brother. That's me and one of the soapbox derby guys. That's me when I was probably about 10 or 13, somewhere around there. That's my dad, my sister, and me, and Donna Jean. That's the same 2, 3, 4 people. Now, that's a garage my dad built in Phoenix when he got out of the service. And it was a Mission Drive garage, they called it. And I'm standing around there with no shirt on. That's my Uncle Joe. That's probably taken in Ohio in his garage. Now that's the building my dad built. And in the background, you can see the house that he built, or had built. It was a prefabbed house. The walls were a ½ inch thick.
Is that his Plymouth there?
Yes, that's his Plymouth. Yeah, that's another picture, same thing. Now that was taken on the lot next to that garage, and that was the building, a modification of the original building.
How do you pronounce the auto supply name?
And what?
The auto supply? How do you pronounce its
Oh,
name?
that was Brizendine. He was a auto parts guy, and he run a line around all the service stations like Mako and the other guys. I can't remember their name right now.
So was he parts or was he tools?
He sold parts and tools. Now that was me when I was working in the gas station.
So you might have been 16 there?
Yes, probably about 16.
That's interesting. It's 88, service 88, and you're 88 now.
Yeah, I don't know what that 88 meant. It meant something, but I don't know what it was. That's my dad standing in front of the Brisendine's building that he built, and that was after Brisendine left. Then they changed what the signal or something, and I don't know exactly what all the complications was. Now that's a vacant lot. We was over there looking at that, and it's completely empty. There's not a blade of grass growing on it. That's looking at the office and where he kept his supplies, the grease rack. Now, this Hootmon, they called it. It was. I don't know exactly what it was. They changed that sign several times. Now that's Eddie at the front of the gas pumps. That's my grandpa and grandma, and I don't.
It almost looks like Ruth in the background.
It looks like Amelia, and I don't know who that is in the background. It's probably. Oh, I remember now. She had big hooters. That was the lady down the street. Her name was. I don't know what her name was, but she had a dairy down there. I went to work for her later on. Gas was pretty expensive in those days, $23.9. That's me when I was 16 or 18. I mean, 16 or 17. That's another picture of me when I was a young dumb shit. And that was the house that I was telling you had walls a half-inch thick. Same house. That's when I was brought up on in that house. That's in front of that house. I don't know who the two kids are in front. They're probably, I don't know. That was my sister. She belonged to the Civil Air Patrol in Michigan.
What did the Civil Air Patrol do?
They didn't do much of anything except, I don't know what they did, but it was what they was supposed to do, you know. Now that's one of my birthday parties. Was having a bag race. That's the 41 Plymouth looking south.
And that building is the one your dad built?
Yes, and on the other side that coupe. It's a pretty good sized building. Oh, that girl. Oh. Peggy Ann Sims. God, what a heartthrob. Now that was another girl I dated, Betty Willoughby. Never forget that girl. I treated her like crap, and I felt bad about it even to this day.
That's still Betty?
Yeah, that's Betty. She signed it for me. That's another picture of Peggy Sims. That's name was Dolores Willoughby, I think. She was a girl lived down the street. And we dated quite a bit. Not a whole lot, but enough to swap spit. Now, that picture was taken in Kentucky when I was in service. Now, those are my cousins. The middle one, oh God, Rachel, and I can't remember the blonde's name, and that's Eddie on the end. I'd like to send Eddie those two pictures. That's me and Eddie when we were young and had hair. That's Rachel and me. She was a cousin. Now that's me and me with a hat on and a hat off, no hair. That's John Higgins and me. John was a Mexican Irishman. John Higgins. That's me and Eddie. It looked like we're drunk. That's me at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's another picture of me. That was taken at my ex-grandma's house. Thompson was her name. That's Rachel. These pictures were taken all in a day's time. That's Eddie and Higgins. That's me and Eddie and the girl. We had two girls in the car. One of them was Peggy Sims and that girl. And Peggy Sims was with Eddie and that girl was with me. And they was looking backward and forth at each other and they wanted to swap. So Eddie stopped, but I stopped the car and they jumped out and traded places. So I wound up with Peggy and he wound up with that girl. Now, that's Higgins and the girl in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I can't remember her name, but she just went bonkers over him. She thought he was a bronze goddess. That's Eddie and Higgins.
Why did you roll your sleeves up like that?
I have no idea. That was what we did. That's Eddie and his heartthrob, and I can't remember what her name was, but he was absolutely crazy about her. And she went off the deep end somewhere and done some funny things. That's me on the right, and the other guy who was a buddy we went town with. That's a cannon in one of the towns. I don't know where it was. That's me and my dad.
You're on leave?
Yes. That's Harry Hall and Thomas Hall.
You're probably in the best shape of your life then.
Yeah. That's my sister and her brood.
Jack is her husband.
Yeah. He had 2 or 3 boys and a girl. I can't remember how many for certain. That's my beloved wife and her sister, Eileen. Joyce was a knockout. When I saw her on the streets in Nashville, Tennessee, I told the guys, I said, I'm going to marry that girl. And I pursued her until she gave in a year later. That's the day I met her. You can tell I was so goofy about her, I couldn't hardly stand it. I just was absolutely insanely in love with that woman. I didn't even know who she was.
Want to add anything else?
No, it's pretty good.